So if we have some users out there, some first responders, family members, or veterans that wondering why they have anxiety, what's the root of it, or PTSD or insomnia, or they have an opioid addiction issue or alcohol issue, or they're just dealing with marriage and family.
I've been a doctor for 53 years now. So, and I was an emergency doctor, a primary doctor, and then I've been done integrative medicine for 50 of those years.
This is value because we are making an impact in the lives of our users. I feel that, I know that, I get the responses, I hear your videos on once a month and so forth, and I see the data points.
Between a stimulus and a response, in other words, between what happens to you and how you respond to it, there's a space.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do in that space can affect your response. And that's really the potential to find freedom when you have suffered and experienced adverse effects and trauma.
First, Marty, thanks for having me on the Zoom. Of course, I always observe and watch once a month when you have your Zoom in terms of students calling in and so forth. I'm going to correct you now, so don't take it personally, but I'm Sergeant Major, not a Master Sergeant. So, but now that you know, that's okay. I'm going to put it in your front lobal.
My apologies. It's a much different thing.
It is.
Higher,
that's fine.
rank.
That's fine. But you don't got to call me Sergeant Major. So, well, anyway. So what happened was, well, how this came to fruition in terms of wanting a platform. I don't want to call it a mental health platform because that's scary to anyone. You know, it's not a mental health platform. It's a platform that I wanted to help me challenge all life challenges. You know, help me manage it is the key thing. I want to manage my life challenges. How can I do that without medication? You know, so, but it stems back further than that. Okay, because as an individual that was diagnosed with PTSD and anxiety, insomnia, and I have all those negative attributes because of the carnage of war, situations and life's resiliency or lack of it. I was not happy with the knee-jerk reaction of an individual transition out of the military looking for answers in terms of why, what, where, and why, in terms of anxiety, how do I feel this way, and so forth. So I wasn't happy with medication. I didn't like the way it made me feel. I just didn't like regurgitating with my therapist or group settings and so forth about what transpired in my military career. You know, or did I love my mom, or what was my relationship? To me, that didn't help. So I knew I wanted more as a CEO for the DVNF in terms of having a platform that can address the issues that we may have in life challenges that can actually trigger some of those suppressed issues from, being in the military and so forth. So I had this great idea. Well, I thought I had a great idea, and I challenged one of my workers, John, and I said, John, I want you to raise me $30,000 because I'm going to build a platform that's going to address all life challenges. I have an idea. I know someone. I've been reading about this individual. So what he did was, and I gave him 4 months. He actually raised the 30,000 within that 4 month. He took a group of disabled and at-risk veterans, wounded warriors, or whatever the case is, up Pikes Peak, which is a big challenge in Colorado. And we created a fundraising page and so forth. And we had some sponsors, and we raised the $30,000. And then, of course, doing research on your background and your holistic approach to mind, body, and spirit, I said, this is going to be perfect for DVNF. And that's where you and I started collaborating, and we created Mission Possible. We coined it and so forth. And we have a proven track record. The concept is wonderful. And I feel good about it. I utilize it. I don't think it's a cure, but it's going to help me navigate daily life challenges. I may have a bad day, and I can go to that toolbox, and I can weed my mental garden. I can look for my forward observer. I can utilize some of these tools. And an earlier conversation before we both got on, and I was speaking to Dr. Marty Rosman. I'm going to call him Dr. Marty if he doesn't mind, because it just feels comfortable with me. I was talking to Dr. Marty about something that interested me. So if we have some users out there, some first responders, family members, or veterans that wondering why they have anxiety, what's the root of it, or PTSD or insomnia, or they have an opioid addiction issue or alcohol issue, or they're just dealing with marriage and family. Um, I think that being mindful and understanding the makeup of our brain. Remember, we go to the gym, Marty. We're gonna have this conversation. We can work out our triceps, biceps, our abs, or get conditioned and so forth, lose weight or whatever the case is, but we never really focus on the nucleus of our well-being is our brain. And I think that made it important to me to understand the characteristics of the brain and why do I hold on to things, what part of the brain does what. We were talking earlier about the amygdala or the prefrontal, the gas and the brake. Understanding that, and it's powerful because that helps me understand this muscle. And now I can relate to the tools that you provided to help me exercise that muscle. And here's the thing, though. I had a phone call from a friend of mine. I think it was 11 o'clock at night, and anxiety's kicking his tail. And it was all about family and marriage, young adults, and so forth. And he's my age and so forth. And I didn't have answers for him. I really did. But I had a relationship to it because I've been through some of those druthers, in terms of what he's going through.
Mhm.
But we did talk about Mission Possible. We did talk about certain tools in that toolbox that can help him actually manage some of those life challenges that he's dealing with. So I didn't give him any answers in terms of how to fix it, but I showed him where the toolbox was. And I
Mhm.
think that's what Mission Possible has to offer. So listen, it's not going to fix your problem, but it's going to give you the treadmill. It's going to give you the weights. It's going to give you the sauna. It's going to give you the Gatorade after the fact to help you with some of these anxieties and issues that you may have in your life. We don't focus enough on our brain. It's so easy to lose weight with a shot. It's manage your cholesterol with a pill, vice eating healthier. There's so many short remedies, right, that can help you get there, but can you stay there? And I think Mission Possible, Marty, and your partnership with DVNF, I think we have the tools to do this. And as you know, we're both working on more curriculum. We have small missions that are actually coming to Mission Possible for all of you out there that can deal with just certain issues in terms of marriage and family, certain issues in terms of opioid addiction or alcoholism, not just one toolbox, but we'll break out specific tools out of that toolbox to help our users, our first responders, our veterans, our family members. Because believe it or not, our family members are very important to me because they absorb the carnage of what we bring home from our service in the military, being on the street every day, dealing with craziness, from doctors and nurses to firefighters and police officers. And our family members are valuable to us because they keep us in a game. But we need to recognize that they're absorbing that carnage, and it's affecting them as well. So that's the reason why we open this up free to veterans, first responders, and family members. All right, so that's how we came to the fact that this is the reason why we have such a wonderful partnership, Marty, because this is value, because we are making an impact in the lives of our users. I feel that, I know that, I get the responses, I hear your videos on once a month and so forth, and I see the data points, and I'm excited. I'm excited that we're going to expand this. So so that's how we came aboard in terms of our relationship in terms of Mission Possible.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you did, and you're absolutely right. It's basically a a toolbox, like you said, teaches 7 what I think are the most fundamental tools that you need if you're going to work with your consciousness. And that's, there's so many things that you said that make me want to comment. It is very helpful to know how the brain works and how the
Mm,
brain is affected by trauma, and how the brain can have a tendency to recreate that trauma, to amplify the trauma, to get stuck in the trauma because of the way that it's wired. But what Mission Possible is basically, the brain is the hardware. And it really is helpful for people to know how the brain is affected by these things and how that works, because it does have tendencies, and you need to know your hardware. You need to be able to
mm,
improve your hardware if you can. But software upgrades are much easier than hardware fixes. And basically, your mind is the software. If the brain is the hardware, the mind is the software. The mind, and the trouble with mind body things, one trouble is that the mind is invisible. Nobody actually really knows what a mind is, anyhow. It's a very elusive definition. It has a lot to do with what you're paying attention to and how you're using your ability to think, to put things in perspective, to make changes. And what Mission Possible is really about is about freedom. It really is about freedom. And there was a psychiatrist named Viktor Frankl, who was a Nazi concentration camp survivor. He spent years in the concentration camps. And he studied kind of informally what it was that, if he could find something that differentiated the people who survived from the people who succumbed easily. And his thesis was it had to do with meaning, and with people that find meaning in their suffering. But he said an interesting thing. He said between a stimulus and a response, in other words, between what happens to you and how you respond to it, there's a space.
mhm,
And what you do in that space can affect your response. And that's really the potential to find freedom when you have suffered and experienced adverse effects and trauma. The downside about going too much into the brain is that we can feel like, well, it's in my brain, it's a done deal, nobody can fix it. It's not true. There's a space in which we have the ability to use our consciousness, our attention, where we put our attention, what tools we bring to it, to kind of pry open that space and to do things in that space that affect the way that we feel and act on the other side. And that's
mhm.
really what Mission Possible course is about. So, have you heard any feedback about the course from other vets? I don't know.
I have my PCM doctor through the Veterans Administration, which I love this guy because he doesn't take the product processing approach to his patients, Dr. Sue. All right. It's more than that, right? It's the relationship first, medicine second. And I'm a fan. And that made me get motivated to provide a personal aspect to DVNF as a CEO, but as well as Mission Possible program, because I've been through all that. So yes,
Mhm.
I do get wonderful feedback. I got wonderful feedback, but by my PCM as well. And then we share books. Why am I always, thinking? Why am I always developing? Why do I paint at 2 o'clock in the morning? Why do I do this? And I'm reading a book that he told me he gave it to me. It's called Flow, and it's
Mhm.
interesting. So that's our interaction, and I'm listening to my peers that correspond to my emails and so forth, and they love this. They love the well-rounded of the toolbox, but they wanted more. So taking that feedback is when you and I are actually cultivating certain segments of that toolbox and highlighting it for individuals that have a particular issue, that we spoke about earlier. But I find it fascinating, as well as I talked to my PCM, is I wanted to know more about the gas and the brake of my brain. You know,
Right.
the amygdala and the prefrontal frontal cortex. That's important to me because he said, and I believe that we had this conversation as well, it's the prefrontal cortex that's skipping. It's like your brake. Okay, you need to change the fluids in your brake line, or your brake pads are wearing down. Because the gas is
Yeah.
just won't slow down. So
Mhm.
the issue is the braking system, and that's
Mm.
where we are having issues in terms of PTSD, anxiety, insomnia, and all these OCD and all these other issues, because it
Mhm.
all adds up to the, what's it called, the hippocampus. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but that's our
Yeah, you
memory.
did.
Yeah, the memory aspect of it.
Right.
So I think, Dr. Marty, those three subjects, all right, pretty much, pretty much becomes the umbrella for Mission Possible, believe it or not. Yeah, we can talk about the left side handles the right side handles the left side of the brain.
Right.
I'm artistic, so I tap into the right. I'm
Right.
analytic, so I tap into the left. I mean, you have those attributes that can tell you about the fundamentals and characteristics of how we absorb and all that. But to
Right.
learn about the brake, to learn about the gas, and then of course the hip in terms of the memory, I think that's going to be important to. It's important to me because I'm a wounded warrior. All right, I'm dealing with it, every day. I'm challenging myself through life's challenges. But I
Mhm.
think, Dr. Marty, if as we move forward into this course, I think it'd be important to our students or our friends, our family, and Mission Possible to learn a little bit more about that and remind them, the makeup of those front lobes, and why do we do these things? Where can the
Yeah.
disconnection be?
Yeah.
Because understanding that, you want to run to go see a doc, and he's going to give you that short fix that's going to suppress or hamper or make you feel, you know, foggy, whatever the case is. And I know that's how my medication felt. But I tell you what, I've been getting great responses, and they want more. They want
Yeah.
more, and and they want to learn about a specific tools for specific issues, vice just having
Let me throw something by you because this is something that we run into in clinical medicine all the time. I've been a doctor for 53 years now. So, and I was an emergency doctor, a primary doctor, and then I've been done integrated medicine for 50 of those years. And with a special interest in the relationship of the mind and body and teaching people how to work with basically with the stress of life because
hmm
like you said we don't cure the stress of life. In some ways life is stress because stress is any demand that you're asked to make, so
Absolutely.
it's full of it. It's full of potential learning. We don't always learn, but we can learn. That's one of the characteristics of humans. And we can, as you say, manage problems in better ways, more efficient ways, more successful ways. Stress still happens, bad things still happen to people. We're not going to ever make all of that go away, but we can change where it lives in the brain from the front, from in your face
hmm
to on the back burner where it comes up less and less frequently and where you have more freedom of movement and so on. But
Absolutely.
And so I agree with you that learning more about the brain and the physiology is very helpful. It has been to me as a medical doctor, and it had to make sense to do this stuff that when I started doing it was real woo-woo stuff, come from the East and come from
hmm
meditative practices and hippy dippy and
hmm
you
hmm
know things like that. So and yet now it's so widespread. Athletes use it, artists use it, performers use it,
Exactly.
wounded warriors use it. It's much more front and center. There's 30 years of research now showing how the brain actually changes when you use these tools. That's one of the things. There was a famous
hmm
book called The Brain That Changes Itself,
Right.
because when you change the software, if you're persistent with it, then the hardware actually changes. The tracks in the brain that
hmm
become well worn, instead of the same message going over and over and over when you feel like a victim to what's happened to you, and don't
Exactly.
step in and say, hey, I want a role to play here. I have a role to play here. I can learn things and I can do things. As you know, the big deal or the big challenge in this whole field is, I would say, 10 to 20% learning more, 80% using the tools. And
Exactly.
there's a huge discrepancy between knowing the tools are there and using the tools, and having the tool, someone giving you a toolbox and opening it up and then using it and giving yourself room to, you know, use it improperly or not be comfortable with it. But like anything else, if you stick with it, you become more and more comfortable with it. It starts eventually to become second nature. So what do you see as both the challenges and opportunities for people to actually, and one thing about that, the more you, I'm total agreement, it's totally useful to know more about the brain and the nervous system. And there's a way in which people use that kind of learning to avoid actually using the tools. So they become
Right.
experts on knowing the tools. So what do you see as both the challenges to people using these tools, how we can be more effective in helping people kind of dip a toe in the water? Because when they do,
Mhm.
they can often start to feel benefits, sometimes small, sometimes bigger, right away. You know,
Right.
how do we get people to open the toolbox and build something and see how that affects them?
Normalizing it. It's normal. Dr. Marty Rosman, Marty, you've been around this earth for a long time. All right. You're a medical doctor, you've been to college, you're educated, you got grandchildren, you have challenges in your life. You're no different than I am. I
Right,
just had a different path in life. Mine
right,
could have been a little bit bumpy or a little bit edgy. Yours could have been a little bit more as well. We both are cut from the same cloth. Bottom line, we all are cut from the same cloth. I grew
hmm
up poor on welfare. You
hmm
know, my mother had a fifth grade education. Mother and father got divorced when I was 7. I mean, I had challenges. My siblings had challenges, right? So that's a resiliency thing. But here's the thing, though: our users out there, our first responders, family members, or whatever, we're all like-minded. We're just
hmm
talking about it. We're having
right,
that conversation. We all have issues in life, whether
right,
it be from our job, our family, husband, wife, children, our car. We can't pay our bills, with
right,
broken window. I mean, come on, it's normal. There's
right,
no, there's this fantasy that the narration gives us this American dream thing. And God bless, America is great and there's wonderful things we can attain and so forth. But there's life challenges that comes with those dreams. That
right,
white house up on a fence, up on the hill that we want, the white picket fence. Whoever lives in that house has the same life challenges that we do every day. So I think that the relationship that we need to have with Mission Possible and our first responders, veterans, family is, guess what? You know, we're all like-minded. We all have issues in life. It's just that we
right,
have to trust in each other and have the conversation. If you think about what's happening right now in our society, by God, it's terrible if you have your own opinion. Now there's a brawl, there's a fight over your own opinion. Let it be your Democrat, Republican, Independent. You like this, you like that, whatever. It's life challenges. We live and we die. So we want to live with anxiety and trauma and not address it because it's a secret or it's not the new thing. Well, guess what? It's always been there. And what Mission Possible is doing is giving our first responders, veterans, and family members, or whatever, an opportunity to open and discuss their life challenges, and these tools will help them navigate through that. So I think the answer to that is pretty simple. Let's talk about it. Period. Let's just talk about it. I'm no different than anyone listening right now or anybody registered. I'm a human being. I have my own druthers in life, issues in
right,
life. I have my likes, dislikes, and political mindset or whatever the case is, but I'm human. I'm gonna die one day, but I'm gonna live as much as I can. And these tools are gonna help me navigate that and empower me to live a little bit more. Vice. Let's go to the doc and get the medication and slow my mindset down and so forth. I don't feel real. I feel real with Mission Possible because I'm talking about it, Marty.
right,
I'm talking about it, right?
right.
And then
I
and
also,
quickly, right, go ahead.
I just also want to say, it doesn't have to be either or with medications or therapy or the self-care skills that we teach in Mission Possible. These should be, everybody can use these skills, and when
Exactly.
they use them, they feel better and often don't need as much medication, but it's not necessarily, and I don't like to make medications bad. Medications
Right.
can help
Absolutely.
people, but it's the pharmaceutical fantasy of medicine in America
Yeah.
is a pill for every ill. So
Right.
we are talking more skills instead of pills. Yeah, but not making the pills bad. It's just
No,
that if the pills help you slow down, if they help you feel less anxious, if they can help you be more present, then you're even more able to use the tools that we're teaching them in Mission Possible.
absolutely. I agree with you, Marty.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking pills, but I'm just telling
Yeah.
you what works for me.
Right.
Right.
Works for a
I
lot of
have
people.
carnage. I have carnage in my, here's the thing though, everybody has a resiliency line. I've been in a few think tanks in terms of
Hmm.
resiliency on and why is the suicide so high in the military and so forth. I spent
Hmm.
hours in the think tank, headquarters of Marine Corps, and we're all these doctors and high figures and so forth. And it goes back to, okay, how I was born, right? You can't choose your parents. Okay, so you're born, all right? And then, are you coming from a broken family?
Right.
Are you, is the relationship with your parents abrasive? I mean, there's so many negative things that can lead to you either being strong, or having issues, right? And now social media, and as you know, everybody puts their private stuff out there. Oh, please be my friend. And next,
Right.
it's affecting how our young ones think in terms of
Very much
I'm not
so.
liked enough, or
Right.
you know what? I agree. Medication it's going to help you,
Place. There's a
but
place.
it's not the cure though. And
Right.
here's the thing though, there's no cure for anybody out there. There's no cure for PTSD, period. All right. There's none. All right. There's no cure for anxiety. All right. But how do you manage it? All right. You can manage it with medication as well as a toolbox, or you can manage it with a toolbox. But understanding the brain, understanding how we absorb things, like in the course, there's 7 courses, as you know. Weed Your Mental Garden is very important to me, right?
Right.
So I have some deep things from childhood, being abused
Right.
as a child, that are rooted, in me, where I would love to reach in and pull that weed, hold on to things. Some
Right.
things we can control, some things we can't. So I go in and I try to rip, that weed out, but
Right.
it's so rooted in me, it grows back, right?
Right.
So I identified, I know where it's at.
Yeah.
Weed my mental garden. So I love that part of
And
the course.
the more
Right.
you do
Same thing
it,
with being in the military, my combat experience, or experience of having a wounded young individual under your charge, being wounded or killed or whatever. You absorb all that. You're doing the inventory, writing a letter home and so forth.
right.
That affects you, right? So you
Right.
hold on to that. So PTSD is real. It's normal, sadly to say. There's millions and millions of out there that feel the way we feel, because it could have been a horrific car accident, could be a death in a family. It could be numerous things that can actually bring on post-traumatic stress, and it becomes a syndrome, right? If it's not identified and you don't reason with it and work with it. But absolutely, I'm not knocking medication. Trust me, I'm not. Don't jump off your meds and start putting a wrench to your grape. I'm just saying there's alternative means out there, and I think
Oh,
Mission
absolutely.
Possible
Yeah. No,
can
these things have been
definitely
shown to
help
change.
any individual. Exactly. Let's understand what we're doing here. I
There's
did
an
some
interesting,
research.
can I read you a comment from
Sure.
one of ours from Mary, which is, I think, germane to what we're talking about. She says, sometimes dealing with challenges seems impossible when you're in a bad state of mind, and the thought of turning to a book or a video or another person for help
Mhm.
seems ridiculous and almost like they're not really options. Any advice on how to snap out of that and actually
Yeah.
make the jump to dig into the toolbox? It seems like that first hump is so much more of a challenge,
Mhm.
but once I do actually go back to the course or talk to a friend, it always seems to help. So that's one of my
Mhm.
major interests in teaching these tools. The tools are there, but
Mhm.
there's a
Exactly.
variety of reasons that, and what Mary said is, if you can just get yourself to make the jump, you will consistently find that they're helpful. And when you do that enough, and that's not easy, there are a lot of reasons not to do that. But once people do that enough, there was psychological research on helplessness.
Hmm.
Helplessness is one of the most difficult things for any organism to deal with, including human beings. When you feel trapped and you feel you have no options, it saps the energy out of you and the will to live. And they did this research with it's animal research and however people feel about that. I didn't do it, but we learn a lot from it, and I feel badly for the animals. But they took dogs and they put it in a cage. It's a double cage called it with a barrier in the middle. And the dog couldn't go anywhere, couldn't get out. It was dependent on people to feed it and give it water, which they did erratically. They would give it electrical shocks erratically. It couldn't escape. And after a while, the dogs become very depressed and they lay down in the cage and they don't move. And they bring food up to the cage and the dog doesn't want to eat it. They bring a female dog in heat up to the cage and the dog shows no interest. It just lays there like an animal that has it's given up. And they do everything they can to get it activated again, and it doesn't get it activated. The one thing
Hmm.
that gets it activated again, they pull the barrier out so that the dog can actually, it's a low barrier, the dog can actually jump to the other side of the cage where there's no electricity, there's food, there's water, it's all sitting there. The dog does not get up and jump to the other side of the cage. The thing that allows the dog to go to the other side of the cage is they pick it up by the scruff of the neck and they carry it over, they pull it over to the other side of the cage. And it lays there for a while and then it notices there's water and there's food. It starts to do that. They notice after a while that they're not getting shocked and they come out of their depression and they learn that they can jump back and forth between the sides of the cage. So what Mary's talking about and what I was talking about is how do we get people, what is the equivalent of picking them up by the scruff of the neck and saying, look, here is a place where you're safe, you're more comfortable, you're not getting shocked, you have food and water, and you do have a choice in some circumstances of being on this side or that side of the bar.
Hmm.
That's I'm open to yours or any of the listeners or
Right.
anybody's. I think that that's our main
Okay.
challenge because when
So how,
people
how
do,
many of us out there, Marty, all right, went out and bought a treadmill, all right, and put it in
right,
a room.
it's a
And
good example.
you know what? Hey, I'm going to start the new year off. I need to work on my weight. I got some love around my handles, and they jump on that treadmill and realize, oh man, this is work, right? And they
Yeah,
fall by wayside. Next, you know, that treadmill still sitting in a room, and
yeah,
it has clothes all over and everything, right?
right.
Same thing with Mission Impossible. It's a toolbox,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
But guess what? You know, the wife will tell the husband will tell the wife, or the brother will tell the sister, hey, you know, you spent all that money on that treadmill. Get your tail back up on it. And what do? They get back up on it, right? And then
Something.
eventually they get going into a routine and things are changing. And sometimes they may fall off track. But it's
Yeah,
going to take that special individual, that friend, that close family member, whatever, to tell them to get back on that treadmill. Are
yeah,
you trying to tell me I'm fat? No, you
yeah.
bought it. I'm trying to help you get back on that treadmill, you know? So same
And if
thing with Mission Possible.
right, if you get on it for enough, or after a few, it's usually after a few weeks,
Hmm.
you feel worse when you don't get on it. You start to
Absolutely.
notice that you're feeling better, you have more energy, you have more flexibility,
Right.
you feel better mentally and physically. So we want to find more and more ways to get people into the habit for a few weeks because that's very powerful. When you reinforce it, it's not a lot of times when you think about how much time we spend in life doing other things, including worrying and having negative self-talk and reinforcing the
Hmm.
wounds that we've had. Not we need to respect those. We're not saying that they don't count, but this takes a bit of work. But when you do the work, it really does pay off. That's the message that I want to get to
Right.
people
And
to
you know, that
encourage.
goes back to you know, I got that phone call 11 o'clock last night from a
Uh-huh.
friend, you know, and had those life challenges with, you know, their young adult children and so forth. I can relate. but we
Right.
spoke about it. We're all human. But at the end of the day, I received a text from him, and the next morning it's like, hey, hey Joe, thanks for having a conversation. I know we didn't cure my anxiety or fix whatever, but it made me feel better,
Hmm.
and knowing that I'm not alone,
Yeah.
and utilizing some of those tools to. It's just like anything. You
Yeah.
buy a bicycle because you want to get out there and get healthy. It's a great
Right.
idea. You need it, but what happens? It sits in a garage. Same thing with a treadmill. This is no different than that. All right, but guess what? Your brain is more important than your bicep. Your brain is more important than the love around your handles. Your brain is very, very important. So if you're going to exercise anything, I think it needs to be our mind first. Understanding the characteristics to make up. Why do we hold on to things? How do you read your mental garden? The inner observer. You
Right.
know, and I don't know. I think I talked to you. I like to go to Sam's Club, right, at lunchtime. I go get that $4.98 chicken, Marty, 3 pounds. You can't beat it. All right, inflation. Gotta love the chicken.
Hmm.
Rotisserie chicken. I'm gonna share it with staff or friends or whatever the case is. So I'm at Sam's Club. I'm waiting in line, right? I'm waiting for the rotisserie to stop. I probably get about 15 individuals in front of me, and we're waiting, we're talking, we're excited. We're all wondering if the chicken got a little bit smaller because of inflation, but it's still $4.98, Wonder what their price margins are. So we're having that conversation, and this one woman comes walking up, she jumps in front of everybody. She's waiting right there, and she's ready to gobble up those chickens. And we're all sitting there waiting because we know when that first skewer comes out, there's only 20 on there because we all counted. And we're looking at it like, well, they're going to limit 2 per chicken. I only want 1 to bring back so I can eat with my staff. But she's just sitting there, and I started thinking. I said, okay, let me talk to my inner observer. Let me talk to the guy inside,
Hmm.
realizing I'm a Gemini. Okay, so there's 2 of them in there, right? So I talked to the guy on the left, Marty. I was like, hey, what do you think? And Joe on the left says, you know what? You need to go up there and just smack the heck out of her. You know, she'll learn that way. And I was like, whoa, I had some anxiety and some issues talking to me right there. I said, oh, let me talk to the other guy. Well, you know what?
Hmm.
How about you just be the guy that says, excuse me, ma'am, the line's over here. We've been waiting for 20 minutes.
Uh-huh.
We have space over here for you, whatever. And I did that actually. I actually leaned that way. Well,
Yeah.
she stomped her feet. She didn't like it. And the other older adults are just waving her eyes. And she just mumbled and mumbled and mumbled. And she was standing behind me. And
Hmm.
she started getting ugly with language and so forth directed towards me. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I kind of like took a look inside,
Hmm.
asked my observers, okay, guy,
Yeah.
what do you think? I still think you need to smack the crap out of her. Well, let me talk to the other guy because he gave me better advice. And he says, Joe, I have to agree with the left guy. Smack the heck out of her. And I realized, guess what? I got to go weed my mental garden here, and she's going to be part of that. But the point I'm trying to make is, and I'm talking, that's a life challenge. That's something simple that happened
Right.
during
Right.
lunchtime, whatever the case is, that actually ruffled my feathers and made me, maybe get heated a little bit, but I did take the time and I did analyze the situation without losing my mind because that happens sometimes. 0 to 60 happens with individuals with anxiety and
Mhm.
PTSD and so forth.
Right.
And believe it or not, just taking a moment and make fun of it to me inside, and
Hmm.
realizing that the left and the right's talking, and they both agreed upon it, which probably wasn't the right decision. And I'm glad I didn't take it, but that's a life challenge. And I think all those life challenges that we deal with on a daily basis can be
Hmm.
managed. And
Yeah.
that's just it's a true story. I'm making fun of it because that helps me get through the situation. But that's just a relationship that say to our first responders, family members, and veterans or whatever. We all go through this. It's all we navigate, to deal with these issues. So
Are those abilities that you had before, Joe, taking the time to get quiet and go inside, talk to your inner observer or a couple different parts of yourself, make a choice on how to, is that something that you've lived with your whole life? Is that something that you've acquired or learned to do?
I think I started acquiring that, um, wanting to know more. I had this thing where, um, I would go 0 to 60. Right? You
Hmm.
see, while you're in the military, your mind is always moving, right? We have this thing soundbite in the military called resiliency, not resiliency, but complacency kills. So your mind is always moving, right? So your deployment, you have some horrific issues, things going on or whatever, and you're a leader. What do? You put them in a back burner and deal when I get home, and the mind continues to move on with the mission, right? So you put them on a back burner, and then being active in terms of just continuing and forth thinking in terms of the mission, and you suppress because you want to, you want to accomplish that mission, and you suppress. But when you don't have the heavy training in front of you, you don't have that next mission, and you're finally home, right? You have to decompress, right?
Mhm.
And then when you decompress, complacency starts kicking in, the mind slows down because you're not, that operation tempo is not there. Same thing with our first responders and so forth. And what do? Those emotions that you suppressed, right? Start moving forward. So
Mhm.
I found myself, Dr. Marty, feeling like someone put a flame underneath me going 0 to 60. I just went from cold to so hot in
Mhm.
reaction.
Mhm.
However, that situation may be so minute, it just seems so big to me, and
Mhm.
I'd
No,
snap. But if you have
yeah,
a family member, because they take the brunt of everything,
right.
and I knew I needed to learn more. I knew I needed to get some control because it wasn't healthy for my loved ones. It sure as heck wasn't healthy for me, and that's how I found you, because I
Mhm.
knew, and Dr. Sue speaks of mindfulness as well, my
Mhm.
PCM, and with my research, I love your holistic approach, and you've
Mhm.
been doing this for so many years, and that's where I was intrigued, and I started reading up on your material and so forth, and I became a believer. Now, the toolbox doesn't cure whatever. It's not going to cure, but it helps me navigate, and I feel
Right.
better.
Right. It helps you navigate, helps you get through things.
Exactly.
One of the things that it really helps is that the mindfulness and the tools we teach really help with is, as we said before, life is full of stress. You're not going to avoid it. You're going to have to deal with it in one form or another. But um, when people do this course and this kind of work, what they generally are able to stop doing is creating stress
Exactly.
where none exists. So a huge amount of the stress that we deal with is because of our old patterns and our stories, and that comes from our history, and they're real, and nobody's saying you all forget about it, but it is getting a perspective on it, like you said, weeding that mental garden, being able to create that space where you have time to think and kind of
Mhm.
take stock of what's going on inside, um, choosing which actions to kind of take. It's still annoying as hell.
Oh yeah,
And,
definitely.
but, um, you didn't hit the woman and you didn't end up in jail. And those are two
Oh yeah,
good,
oh yeah, oh yeah.
those
Over a chicken, imagine that.
those
Um,
are two
yeah,
good outcomes.
but here's something too, Marty. I mean, everybody has love and good in their heart, and I think if we all would just be mindful of everybody else, regardless if you're fat, skinny, tall, short,
Right.
what religion, what ethnic background, we're all human, and just respect and just care about other individuals.
No,
I think the life would be, I mean, the world would definitely be a lot better. I mean,
no,
it's just,
no.
we live it in a world with terrible narrative, and it's not all like that. There's more good in this world than bad. And imagine turning the TV on and there was like a good news channel, boy saves dog, great
Right.
things are happening. I mean, and there are great things are happening, but that's not the narrative. And sadly, that's what's being pushed down to us. And there's so many things involved, I'm sure of it, but one of our users made a great point. Yeah, there could be a combination of using medicine as well as certain toolbox and therapies to help us
Right.
navigate through life challenge. But imagine if there was more good, we were more kind to each other. And you're absolutely right. That's being part of mindfulness because we have to feed the brain, right? We have to feed the brain. If we don't feed the brain in terms of meditation, exercise, sleep, um, you know, conversing, having conversations. It's just everybody is subject to this, you know, this no defect mentality. Oh my God, I'm too fat. Oh my God, I'm white, black, purple, pink, or whatever the case is. Oh my God, I'm a Christian or Catholic, or I'm Jewish or Muslim, whatever. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. We're nitpicking. We're nitpicking.
Mhm.
Listen, you may be beautiful or you think you're beautiful. You got just as many problems that I got. You know,
Mhm.
you may have a lot more money than me, but guess what? You know what? You got some life challenges, and money doesn't fix it. You know, your beauty doesn't fix it. The
Right,
nice car doesn't fix it.
right.
You know, but I'll tell you what makes me feel comfortable knowing that I'm a good person. You
Hmm.
know, I care about my employees. I care about first responders, my veterans. I care about my neighbors. I care about everybody. I love
Hmm.
animals. That's who I am. I know who I am, you
Yeah,
know, and I'm
good,
proud of
good.
that. You
Yeah,
know,
and you,
and I think we need more of that out there. You
no
know, I'm
doubt.
not, listen, you know, do I get upset? I sure do.
Yeah,
Do things
me
bother
too.
me? I sure do. Does my heart break? But that doesn't take away that I'm a man. You know, it
Right.
doesn't take away that I'm a human being. But yes, we need to be open-minded and respect individuals. Doesn't matter who you are. It's life. Life is short. And you know, and if you're diagnosed with a terminal issue or whatever the case is, God bless you. I'll pray for you. But then again, light bulbs start popping on when you're, you know, when you're in combat. You get close to two things, Dr. Marty Grosman. You get close to the ground, and you get close to God.
Hmm.
You know, you get close to God. And period. You can even believe in it. You're done.
Hmm.
But absolutely right to one of the individuals that sent a message. You're absolutely right. We need more kindness in this world. And matter of fact, we have it. We have more kindness than hate. We just need to bring it out of people. And I think
Hmm.
we can do that by being respectful. You know,
Hmm.
there's so much hate out there. Unbelievable. I
Yeah,
mean, you know, but here's the thing though, they highlight it, you know, negative sells, you know,
yeah,
it affects our daily life. It really
yeah,
does.
yeah. Because it upsets us emotionally.
It sure does.
And, the emotions run us around. The emotions, if, the thinking part of the brain, Joe, like you said, um, it's more than the prefrontal cortex. That's a big part of it. But the
Mhm.
part of our human brain that's able to think and think abstractly and solve problems and make choices, we think differently than any other animal, is also the newest part of the brain. So the part of the brain that's the emotional part of the brain, much older in terms of evolution. It's been around. It governs our relations with the tribe, with the people around us, and so on. And it operates very quickly. We get those emotions triggered. They fire off pathways that we've developed in order to deal with them the best we can. I always believe that everybody's always doing the best they can. It may not be great, but it's the best they can. And the idea of Mission Possible really is a software upgrade. It's like, okay, here, let's expand your abilities. Let's expand your options when you get in one of those. You're still in one of those situations. You're still going to fire off. Your emotional brain's still going to fire off at that lady
Mm,
going to the front of the chicken line.
exactly.
You know, but here you've learned enough. You have enough cortical control to
Mhm.
not whack her and to say, let me breathe here, let me check this out, let me think about how I want to respond to her and
Right.
find an option that's the civilized option. Um, but sometimes we don't have that, and especially with PTSD, these circles and these loops in the brain that go around and around
Mhm.
between the
Mhm.
emotional
Right.
effect of the trauma and the thoughts we have.
Mhm.
We're trapped in a sense like that dog in the cage.
Absolutely.
So expanding that mental options, here's a bigger toolbox. And
Mhm.
people are talking in the chat room about sometimes it's really difficult to make
It
use of
is.
them. Sometimes it's really difficult to get out of your bummed out phase and to change your thoughts. It's absolutely
Absolutely.
true, but who else is going to do it? This is the thing. When you find yourself like, I can't do this because of that. I can't do this because of that. I can't do this because of that. It's true, all these influences are out there, but there is nobody else who's going to do it. There's only one person who has even the faintest possibility of doing it. And at some point, we want to encourage
Right.
people,
Right.
not making them wrong, but encourage people like, give this a try. It's hard. Yes, it's hard, but it's also hard not to do it. That's
Mhm.
the thing that people don't, so people say it's really hard to change this
Well, Marty,
pattern. I
Some
say, yeah,
people,
it's hard to change the pattern, but you're not in my office because it's easy to not change the
exactly,
pattern.
exactly.
It's,
But Marty, you can also grab your great friend and go to the gym with them, or do the toolbox with them, or because you need that motivation.
yeah,
But Marty, I tell you what though, the Sam's Club, believe it or not, I wasn't expecting it. I didn't expect me going 0 to 60. I was getting close to that because that was one badass chicken. Now those rotisseries are, that was speaking to me. So
uh-huh,
so I wanted my chicken, but then again, although it was so minute and it's kind of funny and all that, that little situation right there was pushing me to 0 to 60. So simple things, and that goes back that I needed
right,
something. All right.
right.
So dealing with my inner observer. But if we can, I know we're looking through some of these individuals, but there is Kay is stating that Kay's been searching for jobs for a few months now, and it's been
Right.
slowly dismantling the confidence and so forth.
Losing
And I've
confidence.
read your email, Kay, but I want to give you my work email. All right. So J Van Fonda, VANFONDA .dvnf.org. Email me personally, all right? And what I'll do is I'll work with you, okay? I can make time, trust me. I love helping as much as I can. I can't help the world, but by God, if I could, I would. I can't, I'm not saying I can help your situation directly, but I can give you resources. I may be able to give you some of my experience and give you some direction depending on where you're at and so forth, and open some of those resources for you because I understand completely where you're at in terms of falling by wayside.
Hmm.
Alcohol can suppress because you're depressed because
Hmm.
of your failure in terms of this, or you're falling by wayside because of interviews or whatever the case is. Kay, I haven't been there. I've been close to it, and I know friends of mine and family members as well that are actually going through your situation like that. And I'd love to listen to you a little bit more, and hopefully I can give you some advice and maybe even help you in
Right,
some way. Okay, Kay. So
right.
just want to let you know that I did read that, and we're not ignoring you right there. And same thing with Mary. Jump back on that treadmill, Mary. What are you thinking about? How much you spend on that, baby? How you buy that Dick's? Was it on sale? Regardless, it goes like this, right? Jump on it for whatever reason, have fun with it, and get back on that treadmill. Stay motivated because that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Hopefully somebody's reminding you of that treadmill. Um, but I tell you what, Marty, I'm excited um, to have a conversation with you, a real conversation.
Yeah.
And for our veterans, first responders, and family members, Marty and I have been talking, and I think we're going to I think we're going to start a podcast, and I think it'd be wonderful for Dr. Marty Rosman and myself to host a podcast, just taking calls and emails or whatever the case is, and just talk about life challenges, talk about what we deal with on a daily basis. Who kicked your cat today and what did you do in reaction? That's important, right? Or you're opening up your pool in the springtime, you realize you need a new liner, it's going to cost you 10 grand because the market's out of control. Come on, you don't need to climb the tree, you don't need to get a sniper rifle, and you don't need to take out the mailman. I mean, there's ways that we can deal with these things. Let's laugh about together, let's cry about together, let's just theory about it, strategize about together, and just
Hmm.
care about each other.
Yeah. So
Communicate.
you're
Keep
talking
that.
about people helping people,
Absolutely, Marty.
which is what we're both about. And I'm hoping that we find some way also of getting uh, some of the folks that are taking the course together to help each other, like you said, 'cause when one's down, the other one says, come on, let's do a process, let's weed our garden, let's talk to our wisdom, let's do that, let's do a meditation on building positive qualities. It would really be helpful to have some kind of buddy system or some kind of little units where people are connected and say, let's do this mission
Mhm,
together
mhm.
because you know better
Oh yeah.
than anybody what that's like when you have a group of people that are focused on the same mission and
M-
one picks up another one when
Marty, I'm going to interrupt you. Let's get real here. Okay. What's the most challenging thing that you had outside of your practice of just being a dad or being a grandfather? Come on, give it to me. Be real with me, brother. What do you got? Oh, by the way, Mary, I am going to look at that book called Deviate.
yeah,
I'm
we
interested
should
in that.
share that from
Yeah,
Mary's.
yeah. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Mary. I'm definitely going to pull that.
Yeah.
Well, come on, Marty, give me the real goods here. I don't want that doctor thing that like you have no defect mentality. Wet sneakers make your feet smell dirty. You know that, Marty. So come on, air it out. What's going on? What was the most challenging family thing that you've been dealing with? And maybe you're still dealing with, Marty. And you know what, Marty? I got a
Yeah.
toolbox for that called Mission Possible. Let's talk about that. So
Right.
anyway, give me an example, Marty, of some of the challenges that you faced during your life that
Hmm.
it's been hard with you. I know it's personal, but it's real.
Yeah, it is. I'd have to think about it for a while. I've actually been very fortunate. I've been very lucky. Not that so most of the things, the most challenging thing for me is uh, staying loving and kind while I'm
Mhm.
pissed off, and how quickly emotions like that can come up. I mean, there have been incidents here and there, but they really boil down to getting scared, getting angry, getting emotional, acting and saying things that I wish I didn't. And as a human being, I realize that makes me a very fortunate human being. Um, but it's also can be very difficult. It's not just a passing kind of a thing. So
Right.
the reason people often ask me, because I seem like my patients often ask me, "Are you always very calm? You know, you seem so calm. How can you be so calm?" And I
It's a
tell them,
gift.
and I tell them two things. I say, I'm always calm when I'm dealing with other people's problems.
Right.
It's easier to be calm because partly because you have that observer position already built in. It's not scaring you to death.
Mhm.
It's not making you feel like you're going to explode. It's not triggering all kinds of self-judgmental things.
Mhm.
And so from the outside, and it's another reason to connect with other people because you can have that perspective. It's not overwhelmed with emotion. So when you get that way, even though it's it's not combat, nobody's shooting at me, nothing's exploding, my friends aren't getting blown up beside me.
Right.
I've never had to deal with anything like that. So it's and people could say, well, okay, these things work for you because you never had any of those things to deal with. But I've worked with other people who have, and I can tell
Right.
you that the tools work for people when they use them, whatever level of issue that they're having. So
Well, Marty,
I don't
I
know if that
know
answers. What's that?
it, I think you're spot on with that, and that's the reason why I love talking to you. You're my somewhat of the brake, and I'm the gas, and I think that we have a wonderful balance because you can slow me down and give me those analytics and I need to be slowed down a little bit. Mary did mention that a Facebook group would be wonderful attachment to the podcast as well. Mission Possible.
Mhm.
Mary, you're absolutely right. Thank you. I love the way you're
Yeah, that
thinking.
is a great
Love the way
idea.
Mary's thinking. Marty, but there's an individual here that's talking about Vietnam,
Yeah,
and here's the thing though, Marty, I'm an older guy, but you're a little bit younger than me. You can probably talk a little bit more in terms of that comment in terms of Vietnam
yeah,
and the neural issues. Back then, it wasn't called PTSD. My brother was called fog of war, man. And then,
right,
things were different back then
right.
because the narration,
Battle,
Kennedy, the
battle
60s, it
fatigue.
was terrible. So I'm going to give this to Marty, and because I think he can relate to this because, he grew up during that time frame. Not that I didn't. I was in diapers, actually.
That's funny. Let me see what iPhone Beach says. Vietnam veterans' health issues, lifetime unresolved issues from lack of support when they came home, taking all the pressures of PTSD and add age discrimination, feeling lost. Where can they find grounding? That's a deep question.
Oh, yeah.
It's part of the reason I think that probably DVNF exists and Wounded Warriors exist.
Hmm. Hmm.
These were things that in
Well,
previous wars, I don't think, in World War II, they called it battle fatigue, and there was another term for it in World War One.
hmm.
Before that, I don't know if they
Shell
ever dealt
shock.
with it at all. So we're just starting to address these kinds of things. And well, I don't have the answer. We did publish, and we can send out again a list of resources for veterans. There are a lot more resources now than there used to be. There are people to talk to. There are groups
Mhm.
to join. There are places to go. It's
I
you
want
know,
to talk to him. Dr. Marty,
just
I want
any
to
of
talk
those.
to him.
Well, Joe, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're also kind of at the end of our
Exactly. I,
time.
I understand that. And for that Vietnam service member, veteran, you know, reach out to me as well. I want to hear more. Sergeant Major wants to talk more to you about this. All right. I'm
Good.
not going to ignore you on that because
That's good.
there's some answers, there's some direction, there's some resources that I know personally. And
Right.
I want to know who you are a little bit more so I can help you out. So jvanfonda@dvnf.org. Email me. I promise you, you'll get a response back, and I may even give you a phone call as well, and we'll converse. Marty,
What
it's
a
been
great,
wonderful, brother. And I
great.
know that all life challenges can be managed because of this, because of Mission Possible. And there's more to come, Marty. And I'm going to leave it to you for closing.
Thanks, Joe. It's a pleasure. Your passion, your dedication to helping vets, first responders, and families is more of that is needed. So I'm glad I could slow you down a little bit, and you get me going a little bit too. So I look forward to having more conversations like this and finding ways to engage more of our people. And for all of our people, I just want to encourage you. Yes, it's hard. Keep plugging away. Give yourself a chance
Exactly.
to benefit from these kinds of things. And if we can find more ways to support you, we will. So, Joe, till the next time, we'll sign off.
All right.
All
Semper
right.
Fidelis.
Bye bye.